This story is true and based off of true events. To preface, I am a 24-year-old female currently living in North Carolina, but mainly split my year birth, though 13 moving back and forth from West Virginia, where my dad's family is from, to Ohio, where my mother's family is from. This also requires some backstory. Now, typically, you'd assume that living in Appalachia is where this all began, but oddly enough, I had experienced what I can only call supernatural experiences as far back as I can remember, even starting in Ohio. I began to speak very clearly and early in life. By 2, I was able to hold almost a complete conversation due to the fact my parents never baby talked with me. Because of this, I began to ask questions, some annoying little kid questions, but some my parents had no real answer for. I would ask, why can't I use a big girl cup? In the same sentence, I would ask, why is there a blue ball in the corner of my room at night? Most of the time, my parents shrugged it off by saying, you were just having a dream. And at that age, why would I push further? When I was 3 or 4, we moved into a 2-story townhouse in Ohio. I wasn't typically a kid who was scared of the dark, but in that house, I began to demand that my father would read to me or stay in my room until I fell asleep. For a while, this seemed to work, but my parents did not want me to get in the habit of needing an adult in the room just to fall asleep, so they bought me a nightlight. While yes, the nightlight helped, I was still terrified, not of my own room, but the hallway that I would see from my bunk bed. My bed was pushed up against the back wall with a window at the head of my bed. On the wall directly across was my double closet with double sliding doors. The rest of my room held my small foldable chair bed that I'm sure anyone born in the 2000s had, along with my other things and toys. From the head of my bed, laying flat, I could turn to my left and see partly out of the window, whereas if I turned right, I could see directly out into the hallway where my parents' bedroom was just out of view. This was the source of my fear. I refused to keep my door shut because I could constantly see and hear things in the hallway, and having the door shut kept me almost paranoid as I could hear it but not see it. What I saw on a nightly basis after my parents had gone to bed was a full woman, seemingly soaked with water, pacing the hall while absolutely sobbing her eyes out. She never spoke or even looked up at me, but at a very young age, I knew this wasn't right. Who was she? Did my parents let her in? She's crying so loudly. How wasn't this waking my parents up? These questions plagued me every night, and I asked my parents about it and got the same response that it was just a nightmare. In my parents' room, there was this old vanity with a mirror my mother kept covered up with a cloth. I had eventually determined that the closer I got to it, the scared I was, but because of this is where she hid candy and gum. One day while she was asleep, I decided to try to steal a piece of gum. I went upstairs into her room, and while looking at the vanity, I swear to God I saw the woman who roamed the halls at night sitting in the mirror looking at me. I screamed and started crying, alerting my mother, who quickly ran into the room and threw a blanket, now fully covering the mirror, and promptly explained to never go into her room alone. The rest of the time at that house was a blur. I remember visiting my grandparents much more with my mom, who was just trying to get out of that house until we were ready to move. When I was 6, we moved back to West Virginia for the second time. We lived in a house 2 houses down from where my grandparents lived, and despite still seeing random orbs and apparitions, which I had become somewhat accustomed to, not much happened, that is, until we moved into the house directly next to my grandparents. That house was built in the 30s, and it showed, from the super thin glass to no surreal air or heat. Beyond that, the people who lived there before us weren't just certified hoarders, but left some very curious renovations. The house was built into the side of a steep hill. It once has a back porch, but 4 plaster walls had been constructed around it, making it a laundry room. There was no insulation, and the floor was so sensitive you had to walk a very certain path to ensure the wood would just give out. With this, they enclosed an exterior window, making a window from my room look directly into this makeshift laundry room. Interesting things were also found throughout the house. A board-up fireplace, padlocks on the outside of bedroom doors, light switches far too high up for any child to reach, and the crawl space. The crawl space was the worst. To get to it, you had to go around to the back of the house. Before moving in, my father took a crowbar to the padlock on the old wooden half door. There was no floor besides dirt, and it smelled of mildew. I feel like you're thinking, well, that's what a crawl space is. And you'd be correct, it was what was found inside that was the last straw from my parents to end up calling the cops on the previous tenants. The past owners had a lot of kids. More kids than they could handle. They had 6 kids, 2 parents, and a grandparent living in that 2-bedroom hoarder house. Apparently, they thought it a great idea to make this crawl space a bedroom for their youngest boy. When we opened it, we found a bare mattress, a small desk, a few toys and crayons, and just sad drawings. As soon as my parents realized what they were looking at, they had me go play at my grandparents' house until the cops came to document this. Once we finally got the house livable, we moved in. The layout was odd. As soon as you walked in, to the left was my parents' bedroom, which had a closet which at some point was made into the smallest bathroom ever. Back in the dining room, if you kept going, you find the living room and then the kitchen. To the left of the kitchen was an odd walk-in pantry that led to the aforementioned makeshift laundry room. Back out to the living room, if you turned left, you'd find a crossroads with a bathroom on the right and my bedroom on the left. Welcome to my bedroom. To the left was a light switch too tall for me to reach. Mind you, no other light switches were like this, a bookshelf in my closet. To the right was my bed shoved in the corner against the wall that had the exterior window that actually just looked into the laundry room. Past my bedroom was an open walkway into my playroom. Immediately after moving in, I began to have actual nightmare. Ones where I was being stalked or chased. It wasn't long after that I began going to church with my grandmother. She was devoutly Southern Baptist, and living in that area, church was really one of the only activities available. Some part of me hoped that reading the Bible and praying would make it go away, but it didn't. Every night I would say my prayers, sign hymens, and read my Bible. I even slept with rosaries my Catholic godmother gave me, but it didn't stop him. Like clockwork, the knob of my closest would slowly fall out. It was solid metal, so it would still make a loud clanking noise as it hit the carpet. I would lay there completely still, yet my eyes fixed on the door. The door, which was hard to open considering the carpet in front of it was over its threshold, would open. Inside would be a boy. I vividly remember him. His head was too large for his body. His hair was short, yet had greasy black bangs. In fact, every part of him looked greasy. He stayed huddled in a ball, but turned to look at me. And oh my God, those eyes. Eyes twice or triple the size they should be, and while every part of him was black, his eyes were almost a blinding white. His facial expression wasn't in malice, but almost a cry for help. I remember being so terrified I couldn't move. This was no nightmare or sleep paralysis, though. Multiple times I would sit up trying to examine him further or get the courage to run out of my room. I would beg in tears to not sleep in my room. I had told my mother about it so many times, she was actually becoming concerned either for my mental health or that I was somehow right. One night, I was allowed to stay at my grandparents' house and my mother slept in my room and she saw it. She saw him. Besides myself, my parents were not religious but spiritual. After she encountered him, she contacted my godparents who came along with their priest to bless the room and house. After that, things just got worse. Physical things started to happen, like books falling off of shelves and me waking up with bruises and scratches. We couldn't take it anymore. Finally, it was bad enough that we all moved in with my grandparents in Ohio until we could find an apartment. Years later, my mother admitted to me she was and felt everything too. She just never wanted to admit to it and scare me. Once I got away from it, it doesn't torment me like it used to. I can sleep well and have not needed a special routine since moving out. But sometimes, I swear, if I'm back in West Virginia, I can feel him right inside a closet door to this day.